Mark chapter 8. We were in Mark 9 last night, and we were just going to back up a chapter into Mark chapter 8. And that is where we will be tonight. All right. Glad to see everyone. Thanks for making it out again. How many of you made it here now? You made it every service, Sunday and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? All right, all the nights. Great. How many of you missed one? How many of you just got them all in but one? Okay, that's good. Good for you. I remember being at I was at a men's conference, and the preacher he was telling a story. And he said, I was at this other such and such conference, and I was sitting in the back, next to I don't even know who, but the second to last speaker was speaking, and then I was the last one, and then I was going to be the last one after that. And the guy who was next to me, he said, I don't know who he was, but the guy next to me leaned over to me and said, "Man, are you staying for the bitter end of this thing?" And he said, "Sir, I am the bitter end." So, welcome to the bitter end. I hope it's not really the bitter end for you. But I'll just say this: it is not. I am not offended, nor I don't think the Lord is either. If you say, "I am so glad I was here," I am so tired, though. To be able to tomorrow night to be able to just take a breather at home. I hope that. That the Lord has met with you and maybe met some spiritual need that you have had. Don't forget what the Lord has done in your heart. Don't forget things that you have learned, and let God's truth be driven deep down inside of us that it sticks. Sometimes it takes over and over. Just even this was it this afternoon? It might have been yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning when I was having my prayer time. It was amazing when if you get truth ingrained in you, it'll come back when you need it. And just with the whole trailer thing being up in the air and on that, I had a whole message that I've preached before. I basically reviewed it in about 1 minute in my prayer time, and the Lord said, "Yep," and see, you need it now. And sometimes it helps knowing that thing inside and out, so that when my time comes, that when it applies to me too, that you have that truth to fall back on. Speaking of that, I did call the insurance adjuster, and no news is what he said. No news on it yet. It's the end of a day or two, though, so I don't know. I'll call him again tomorrow, and we'll keep after it. But if you would keep on praying that that they would approve it, and of course, if they're going to total it, provide the full amounts. That would really obviously help us with getting another one. So lots of details and all. After today, tomorrow actually, we're going to stay at the apartment. Then we leave Friday morning. And we're going to head towards the Chicago area, and going to go there, and going to be preaching at a church in a Chicago suburb for a week next week. And pastor there is excited because he's got a ton of people coming out on Veterans Day. That's next week, and I think the mayor is coming, and maybe of course military veterans and some fire department people, and a lot of people are coming. So we're praying that someone will get saved, and then Friday night we've got a special family night we're going to be doing to kind of reach out to the community and bring some people in. We'll have games and balloon animals and preaching and music to go with it. So you'll be praying for that. And if you like balloon animals, Chicago, I looked at it, it's somewhere like 13, 14 hours away. So you just come on, and we'll see you there. You'll be one of my biggest fans if you come that far for a family night on a Friday. Hey, you all have been really kind, and so thanks for your hospitality and your graciousness to our family, and we've really appreciated it. Make sure, if you would, grab our prayer card and take it with you, and as you remember to, as the Lord brings it to mind, pray for us, and of course there's the sign up back there if you want to put your email address down, so long as I can read it. Okay. As long as I can read it, I will enter you into the my little group that I send out emails, and I just tell you about what the Lord's doing, and I send out prayer requests. And I just sent one out this week. I just sent one a couple days ago, just kind of telling a few stories from the last month and all some of the different people who got saved and such. So I like to, if you pray for us, I like you to know what we're doing. So if you'd like to put your email address down, I will certainly add you to that list. For that. Of course, as long as I can read it. I just say that every time because almost every time I pull that sheet out and I say to Hannah, "Hey, what do you think this thing is?" Right here. And she says, "Oh, that's a 2. how do you know? How do you? I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking, but so that, yeah. Anyway, make sure you grab a CD as well. Grab some music. The Prepare CD, that's Hannah and myself singing on it. The other two, if you like to hear guys singing, the white one, Softly and Tenderly. That's when I was in college, in Bible college. We had a group of us that traveled around the South, and we preached and we sang. And so that CD is back there. A lot of familiar gospel songs and hymns on that one. And then there's Then Sings My Soul, and that's a group from last year, a group of preachers that I got to hop on board with. And so again, if you like to hear guys sing, that's there. Then of course there's the Bible verses for kids, put to music, and the Bible stories for kids. So check those out back there as well. Okay, get some music in your home before you leave here. Make sure you give yourself a discount. Okay, there are no price tags back there for a reason. Okay, you're allowed. You name the price and make it affordable to yourself so you can get some music into your home. Okay, nothing's more disappointing than going back to a table and it's like $15 each or 2 for $29. Woohoo! What a bargain. Okay, so enjoy the table back there as well. All right. So Mark chapter 8. You know what? Let's do it. Let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll jump into our passage that we'll look at. Lord, thank you so much for each person that has sacrificed time, sacrificed energy to be in your house. Lord, I pray that you would bless. Would you please speak to each person that is here? Holy Spirit, I pray that you would overwhelm this room with your presence. Protect us from the lies of our adversary, the devil. I pray that you would overwhelm us with the need of people and show us our own hearts, Lord. Pray that you bless those who work with the children tonight. Would you give them grace? And I pray that the word of God would be learned as well down there. And I thank you for each person that's here. In Jesus' name, amen. So let's start tonight with a question. How many of you, when you were younger, you were ever a part of a club? Now, and by a club, I don't mean like 4-H or something like that your mom signed you up for, okay? How many of you have ever been a part of a club that like you and your friends made it? You created it. How many of you were a part of that? Okay. Everyone. Okay, yeah. She's like, sometimes he was in, sometimes out. It depended on the day. They kicked him out. Yeah. Did you ever like vote people in or vote people out? Guys, if it's guys making a club, it's easy. All girls out, all guys in. That's not hard to figure that out, And so I remember, I know I've been a part of a club at one point. There was a time. I was in elementary school, and I don't remember the exact grade, but it was maybe about 3rd or 4th grade. I remember one of my friends telling me, pointing out a couple of guys and telling me that there was a new club that was being started by a couple of guys in our school. And this was being started. And so this was like apparently a very special club because these guys starting the club, they were not little. They were not little. I mean, these guys were big. These guys were almost adults. I think they might have been 6th grade, and so I'm like excited, oh, there's a new club and such. And so and there was 2 interesting guys. There's one guy who was like super thin, the other guy was like, and so these two were an interesting pair, and they were always in trouble, but they were going to be making a club. And so from what my friend said, now 2 3rd graders, 2 3rd graders talking, so that most of the details are probably might not be totally accurate, but this is what I remember him telling me. If you wanted to join the club, there was an initiation. Did you ever have that? An initiation of deciding if you were worthy to join the club. And the initiation for this one, he had 3 options, okay? This big guy had 3 options. If you wanted to join their club, you could do one of 3 things. You got to pick. It was so nice of him. Okay. Number 1, if you wanted to join the club, what you could do is you could take a knife and carve a smiley face into your arm. That was option number 1. Option number 2 was you could take your hand and hold it in a fireplace for 5 seconds. if you didn't like the knife thing, okay? That was option 2. Option number 3 was, now I can't quite remember the height of it, but his, I want to say it was 30 feet, but I've jumped off a diving board that was 30 feet tall, and it took forever to get down to the water, so I don't know if it was 30 feet, maybe it was like 10 or something like that, but whatever it was the third option was to basically jump off of like a 30-foot, building or structure, whatever, and that was your third option, okay? So you just pick which one you want, and then you get to join the club. Now, I don't know, obviously I did not join that club, and just because. And, you get in big trouble with your parents, for cutting a smiley face in your arm. But, there's, people, though, will pay some, really, could we say, they'll pay some high prices to be a part of something that ain't worth much. Won't people do that? When kids grow up, and they still have clubs, it's just adult clubs have a different name. They're called gangs. I remember watching a documentary, and a guy who was a former gang member, he was talking about how, he said, when you're in high school, you're 11th, 12th grade, you'd see a kid in school who you knew they didn't have much money, then he'd all of a sudden come in one day wearing a $200 pair of shoes, and you knew exactly why he had those shoes. It's because he was in a gang. And so now he has access to money, and so especially, he said, around 11th and 12th grade, gangs were very popular, and they were really wanting to pull in us upcoming 18-year-olds, because they offered all kinds of great things. They would offer money, they would offer, drugs, they would offer alcohol, they'd offer girls, they'd offer family. Basically, oh, you don't have family? You come on in. This gang will be family. They'd offer cars. They'd offer all these different things. But he said one of the things you didn't realize was that as soon as you joined this gang, all of a sudden you couldn't do just anything you wanted to do. He said you had to be careful where you went, and you were constantly on the run. You were constantly running from someone. You're running from people in rival gangs. You're running from the police. You're running from just about everybody. He said, if you are on, you're, going at the store, you're on your turf, and then someone from a rival gang, you see them on your turf, there's no option. You have to just immediately go up and start fighting them, and it was just, and he said it was an awful way to live. Again, people will pay some high prices to be a part of something that just ain't worth very much. I got to tell you something, folks. Jesus, in Mark chapter 8, Jesus did something very interesting in Mark chapter 8, near the end of kind of down towards the end of the chapter. He made a plea about something that would have a high cost, but it would be very much worth it. I like this, verse 34. If you look at Mark chapter 8, verse 34, it says, when he had called the people unto him, with his disciples also. I like how the distinction is made that there was a crowd of people, and then there was the disciples. Because what Jesus was going to ask was he was going to call upon this crowd of people. He was going to call upon them to decide, will you be a disciple? Because, there's plenty of people out there in the crowd. Being a part of a crowd is easy. And so long as there is a crowd that's moving along and doing things, it's real easy to be a part of that crowd. Maybe even, right now in the church, there's a good amount of people that are here, and people seem to care about the Lord, want to do right. It's easy to be a part of the crowd while there's a crowd. But Jesus says, I am calling for people to get out of the crowd and become a disciple. He says it's going to have a high cost, but it will actually be worth it. Let me ask you this question. How many of you want to be used by God? Who wants to be used by God? Anyone want to? Okay, good. That's, I think, all of us. Hey, listen, friend, I'm going to tell you something. If you want to be used by God, that comes at a high cost. Listen, I want to be careful with this statement, but it is reality. Believers in Jesus are many. To an extent. But people who will get saved, who will pray a prayer to receive the Lord as their Savior are many. But few are willing to commit to discipleship. Why? Because it's going to cost. You It will cost you. It will cost sacrifice. Though sacrificing to God, that makes us all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, I don't know, boy, maybe we need to think about this, which is amazing because we like the fact that Jesus was willing to sacrifice everything that he had to come to this earth, live and die for us, and yet we are going to now question and say, I don't know if I want to sacrifice some things for the one who gave up everything. Which is kind of bizarre, but it's often the way that we think in our American mindsets. And so if you truly want to be used by God, I'm going to tell you something. If you are willing to pay the high price, I'm going to tell you something. God will do great things with you and will give you purpose. The song that we just sang, A Higher Call. In other words, people everywhere, as it says, people are fighting for their rights. People are trying to be a part of some cause. People are hoping to be recognized. People want fame. People want fortune. Can I tell you something as a believer? Can we not live for something way better than that? Is that all life is? Is how much fame, how much fortune, how much stuff can you accumulate? What kind of a retirement program can you have? How many assets can you have? How big is your life insurance? Is that all we live for? No one says any of those things are wrong, but is that where life is really at? Is that really where us as Christians, where we are striving towards and where our goal is? Jesus says, listen, if you don't mind being different from the crowd and you want God to serve you, he says you need to be a disciple. So let's look tonight. I want us to look at Christ's terms of discipleship. Christ's terms of discipleship. What does he say? Because Jesus, one of the things you will find is if you will read in the Gospels, there's a parallel account, I believe in Luke chapter 14. Jesus is very blunt. And there's no way around some of these words. Jesus made it very clear that, sure, salvation is open to all. Salvation is simple. Salvation is easy. It is through Christ alone. It's not by works. Jesus made it that way on purpose so that sinners like us could be saved. But he says, listen, if you want to be a disciple and see God do something great with you, it will cost. And Jesus doesn't mess around with it. Let's look at Christ's terms of discipleship. Number one I want you to see is I want you to read the conditions. Read the conditions. What does he say the conditions are? Did you ever notice when you download just about anything anymore, they always put a thing of terms and conditions? You ever notice that? And can anyone remember the last time you read the terms and conditions of anything? I remember when I was 12, bought my first ever video game with my own money, 12 years old. I was so excited about it. It was a football game, and I love football, and I was so pumped about it. And I remember loading that thing onto the computer, and I remember that I'd never seen it before, the terms and conditions. Oh, I was taking this thing seriously. I mean, I loved that game. I was so excited about that game. We had just moved from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin. I read the whole manual on how to play this game the whole way out. And when that terms and conditions came out, yeah, I know, right? And when the terms and conditions came out, man, I'm scrolling through that thing. I'm reading them. About halfway through, I'm like, oh, I don't understand this. And I really want to play. I hope I'm not doing something wrong. And I clicked it and I, hit approve and install the game, and I quickly forgot about it, because we oftentimes just gloss over the terms and conditions. Jesus said, if you want to be used by me, if you want to see God do something great with you, if you want to be a disciple, someone who is separate from the crowd, he says, here's the conditions. Here's what's going to have to happen. And it's nice, short, and simple. Verse 34, he says, whosoever will come after me, whoever's going to be a disciple, he says, here's first condition, let him deny himself. Let him deny himself. Now you might say, oh, deny myself. You say, Brother Matt, I can't deny who I am as a person. Okay, that is not what this verse is talking about, okay? That is such a earthly, hallmarky thing to say. I'm sorry, I pick on certain people about this hallmark thing, but sorry, that's just where I go. That just sounds like such an empty thing to say, because that's not anything what this word deny means. When Jesus says deny yourself, he's not asking you to deny your personality. He's not asking you to deny yourself food or deny yourself nice things like a monk would or something like that. Do you know what the word deny means? The Greek word, it's really simple. It means to say no. That's all it means. It means to say no. You ever been on a diet and had to say no to some beautiful things? That's all the word deny means. It means to say no. It means that if you're going to be committed to the Lord and see him use you, there has got to be a fundamental reorientation of how you think, in that every decision that comes up, you are willing to say no to what you want and say yes to what God wants. That is everything about how you will live, that everything is about no to you and yes to God. Then he says, second condition there is, he says, then you must take up your cross. So bear your cross. Take up your cross. Well, what in the world does Jesus mean when he says, take up your cross? Let me tell you a couple things that it doesn't mean, because apparently this is pretty important, or you can't be a disciple of Jesus Christ. What does it mean to take up your cross? Well, a couple things that it's not. For one thing, it doesn't mean to inflict physical torment upon yourself. This Easter, unless something's different, there will be, again, in the Philippines, there are a group of people, I saw videos of it, they will literally walk down the streets on maybe Good Friday as well, but on Easter as well. And I mean, they will whip themselves because that's what happened to Jesus. They'll whip themselves. There are actually men who are crucified annually. Did you know you can do that in the Philippines? Crucified annually, and they stay up there for, a certain amount of minutes, and they just bring them down, take them to the hospital. And they do that, and this one guy does it every single year. That's not what taking up your cross means. Now, let me say this. Let's be clear on this. Do you know one other thing that is not taking up your cross? Taking up your cross is not you having a disease. Think about it. Maybe you've said, I probably have said this before. You ever said, this illness that I have, this handicap that I have, it's just my cross to bear. Okay, now I'm not criticizing you if you've ever said that, because I'm pretty sure I've said that at some time. But here's the fact, folks, is that taking up your cross is a choice. It's a voluntary thing. Getting a disease, having a handicap, pretty sure none of us chose that. Like, here, let me break my leg. Now this is exactly what I wanted, okay? I don't think anybody really does that, okay? And so what is that when it says bear your cross? It's not talking about, I'm just under some pain. This is my cross to bear. No, it's a voluntary choice. Well, a choice for what? There's several different aspects that could go along with this. The one that really sticks out to me is this, is that when someone would take up a cross, literally back in these times, what was he doing? Well, if he was bearing a cross and carrying a cross out of a city, that meant that he was about to die. Right? He's taking a cross out of the city, and most of the time what the government would do is they would force you to carry your own cross up the hill, and it was kind of a humiliation thing. And as you were carrying that cross, several things were in play, but for one thing, it was a picture to all the rest of the audience, everyone who was watching, that this guy who once was in rebellion against the government, he was a part of the gangs, the zealots, he was a thief, he was a criminal, he was a robber, he was a murderer. Now, as he's carrying this cross, essentially he is saying this: I have now been placed under submission to the government. As he would carry that cross up that hill, all those people knew, wow, even he can't get by the government. Wow, even he has to submit to the government. And it was a lesson to the people as they saw him take up his cross and walk up a hill. And what Jesus says? He says is this: if you want to be my disciple, you're going to have to be in submission to me on everything. Like, you don't pick what you want to submit on. Like, as in, you don't pick anymore what your career is. You don't pick how you spend your time. You don't pick who you date, who you marry. You don't pick how your children are going to be raised. You don't pick where you're going to church. You don't pick that. God does. That God is now in charge, and that there is not a single area of your life that God isn't in charge of. If God's not in charge of your life, you're never going to be used by God. If God doesn't get to call the shots in everything, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, then he's not in control. Don't expect him to use you. But God says, you want to be my disciple? He says, learn to say no to yourself, learn to be in submission to me. But then also he says, not only take up your cross, but he also says another condition, and follow me. It means that you need to make me. Jesus says, I am your number one pursuit. You know what the American dream says? Well, follow your dream. What do you want to do? Go after it. Go hard after it. You know what Jesus says? You want to be used? That's not how discipleship works. You don't follow hard after your dream. You follow hard after what God says to do. He says, you follow me. I'm your number one goal on everything. You know, in the parallel passage in Luke chapter 14, this is kind of a shocker, but like I said, Jesus was very blunt with this. He said in Luke 14:26, if any man come to me, he says, and hate not his father and his mother and his wife and his children and his brethren and his sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Now, let's be real careful here. Now, is Jesus telling us that we're supposed to go out and start, if we're going to love God, that we got to start saying to our wives and our husbands and our parents and our children, I hate you, okay? No, that's not what Jesus is saying here, because that would be breaking God's law. What is he saying then? The idea here is this, is that your love for Jesus and your focus, your priority of making Jesus number one in everything should be so strong that people mistakenly could think you hate your family. For example, you say, oh, how could that ever take place? People, that happens in persecuted countries every day. Children are having to pick Jesus over their parents. Teenagers who know that Jesus is their Savior are having to say, Mom, Dad, I can't worship that God anymore. And you know what the kids are being accused of? You hate your mom and dad. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't hate. Yes, you do. If you loved your mom and dad, you'd worship that out. No, I don't. I don't hate my mom and dad. They're getting accused of it. Parents are accused of not loving their children, not loving their family. Do you know that in the United States, can we bust a worldly bubble tonight? Can we bust a philosophy that is worldly, that really needs to go out of the church? Listen very carefully. There's a philosophy that floats through the world it is a worldly philosophy, and it's infiltrated the church. You know what the philosophy is? Family is everything. You know something? If you're a Christian, family is not everything. God is everything. By the way, if you'll make God everything, your family will come right in the place where it's supposed to be. But because you put family above God, it's no wonder you're losing your family. Because you put family first. You know, see how God does when you put an idol ahead of him. Jesus says, if you want to be used by me, I get number one priority in everything. Now, it's not to the point that we say, oh, well, you know, wife, husband, children, parents, I can't ever talk to you anymore, can't do anything about you anymore, sorry, bye, been nice knowing you. Jesus is not saying to do that. What he is saying is that there's got to be a fundamental reorientation in your brain that says, I follow Jesus at all costs. If it costs me a job, if it costs me a promotion, if it costs me some family member understanding, it is loyalty to Jesus that comes above all else. And Jesus says, you got to pick me over all, or you cannot be my disciple. Sure, you might be a believer, but you cannot be my disciple. Jesus was very blunt on that. Maybe that's why you don't see God use you. Is it? Because he doesn't get control of everything, because he's not number one. He is not everything you follow after. Well, what is? And then he says this. Okay, so now that you know the conditions, Jesus says, I want you to know the risks. Know the risk of what? Well, maybe you're sitting out here and you would say, you know, Brother Matt, really the last thing I need is another preacher coming down my throat, telling me about how I need to do more for Jesus. Okay? Know the risks of saying that. Number one, you risk wasting your life. Look at verse number 35. It says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it. The word save there means to preserve it, to try to preserve it up and make it last. Is that not kind of what we do in life? You know, we try to take care of ourselves. We do the best we can with our health. And again, God is not for us like just totally trashing our health and all that kind of thing. But he says, those who are so focused on preserving their life and having the most perfect life that you could possibly have, he says, says, those who do that, verse 35, he says, those who save their life, try to preserve it up, will lose it. He says, you who spend all day chasing after, well, I want to have the perfect American life. He says, you're just going to end up losing it all. He says, that's the risk of following stuff instead of following after me. You could have, again, God is not opposed to you having stuff, but sometimes it comes to the point of, well, I want to have this certain kind of house, so I have to work this certain kind of hours. I want to have it by this time period in my life so I can also have these kinds of vehicles because I want to have this kind of thing saved up for my kids. I want them to have this kind of standard of everything that I have, these things that I have. I want them to have this instead of this, and I want them to be college and all this kind of stuff. And it's all fine and good things, but you have so much stuff piled on top of each other. Jesus looks over the pile and says, hey, me. What happened to us? What happened to me being number one? Remember when you got saved and me, I was number one? Because I sacrificed all for you. Why all of a sudden is life all about how much can I accumulate? How much stuff can I get? And then when we've got all our stuff, we factor in, okay, where does Jesus fit in? You know what? He doesn't this week. We'll catch him next week. Is that how we live? Is that how your devotions are? Is that how your church attendance is? Is that how you serve God? That you'll just kind of catch him sometime and fit him in where you need to? It's amazing how much time we get consumed with by sports, by work, by friends, by dating, by hobbies, so much so that eventually we forget about serving God, that he is number one, that his priorities are number one. And Jesus' priorities on this earth are, he wants the Father to be glorified and he wants the gospel to go forth. Those are Jesus' priorities. And as you follow Jesus, he is going to lead you in a direction that your entire life is all about glorifying God and bringing the gospel to the lost. Because really, what's going to last after that? If you pursue after other stuff, you are going to waste your life. I remember a lady, unsaved lady, asked me, I was probably 16 years old. She was really a very postmodern woman. She had come over from Germany, and and she's and so we're working in a deli inside a grocery store. And I remember her asking me, because I told her, I'm a Christian, and I think God wants me to be a preacher. And she wasn't much for God, just didn't really believe in God. I mean, we had a good friendship. It was good. But I remember her asking one day. She said, Matt, if you didn't have God, like Christianity, all that, what would you do with your life? What would you want to do with your life? And I hadn't really thought about that, and I thought on it for a little bit, and I said, you know what I would do? I said, I wouldn't know unless it actually happened, but I think if I could do whatever I wanted, I'd probably commit suicide. She said, what? But you have such a beautiful life and all this kind of fluffy stuff. And I said, what would be the point? What's the point of living when all we're going to do is just suffer and then die and go into a hole in the ground? If that's it, why live all that? Why do it? Folks, we live for a much higher calling. Now, if you're going to live as a Christian, if you live for how much money can you accumulate, how much stuff can you do, and just live for stuff, and then fit in Jesus where he fits in, yeah, you're going to fit right into that category, and those feelings and those thoughts may eventually come. But I'll tell you what. You know what a higher goal and a higher calling would be? Is if you said, my life is going to be all about following Jesus and following after what he wants. How are you as aggressive about serving God in his church as you are about getting ahead in your job and your career? No one is against you having money. Having money is not sinful. It is not wrong. It is not wrong to plan for the future. But folks, sometimes we live for it too much. Sometimes we know we could live right here and be comfortable, but because we want just a little bit more, then all of a sudden that time that we had for God goes out the window. All of a sudden devotions time goes out. Family devotions kind of goes out the window. Now all of a sudden there's not really time to serve in church. Now when they're talking about vacation Bible school and kids getting saved, you don't really have time for that. And all that stuff that Jesus wants you involved in gets shoved to the side because you've got to get some more stuff. Is that where we're living? Jesus says, you know what the risk is? If you live this way, you risk wasting your life. then also you risk forfeiting what will last for eternity. Verse number 36 says, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Normally oftentimes we give that verse to unsaved people, and for good reason. But this was written to people who Jesus was saying, get out of the crowd, stop being like everyone else on the pew, and be a disciple. He was saying, what does it profit if you gained everything this world could have and you lost your own soul? Or he says, what would you pay in exchange for a soul? The most important thing you can be involved in, the most important business you can be involved in on this earth is getting involved in seeing the souls of men win, because when you lay on your deathbed, your money will stay, your stuff will stay, someone else will get all your junk, but the souls that you have won to the Lord will spend eternity in heaven. You will be much, much happier as your health decays and as they tell you that you're going on hospice to be able to say, you know what, with God's help, at least I know that I gave the gospel to my children, they're saved, they're serving the Lord. Would you rather be able to say that or say, I'm so thankful I've got money? When it's 6 months till the end of hospice, that money's not going to matter. Your car's not going to matter. What's going to matter? That you brought your children to know the Lord. That you brought your spouse to know the Lord. That you brought your friends to know the Lord. That your coworkers knew that Jesus could save them. It's not going to be, did I have more 401k? It's not going to be, how much life insurance did I have? Again, and I'm not saying all those things are wrong. People, I have a 401k. I have life insurance. I have those things as well. No, but listen, that is not my ultimate goal. That is not where I spend my focusing and my time. I'd rather be used by the Lord. How about you? Would you rather be the disciple? Know the risk is that if you're going to just live for stuff, you're going to waste your life and you're going to forfeit precious souls that could last for eternity. Another risk is that you risk embarrassment to Jesus Christ. Verse 38 says, whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words, specifically these words here, in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed. Whoa. You're going to be embarrassed of these words? Jesus says, I will be embarrassed of you. But here's what I want you to do here. Let's close by looking at this. Number 3, see the benefits. Isn't it helpful to also see the benefits? It's good to know the risks, but know also what the benefits are. Verse number 35, if you'll live this disciple life, sacrifice for the Lord, serve God with all your heart. What does it say, verse number 35? Whosoever will save his life, try to preserve it up and keep it for himself, he'll lose it. But verse 35 says, whosoever will lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall preserve it. Shall save it. He says, if you will lose your life and dump it into the bucket, the bucket of gospel giving and glorifying God, God says you will preserve your life. Your life will have purpose. You won't feel like, I'm just dust. I'm just the next speck of dust in the big, continuum of time. But you will actually say, I have purpose. Because I'm living for a higher cause. I am living for a higher call. I am living for something else. It will give your life purpose, and you'll be able to see people saved. As he says, the most important thing you can do is see the benefits. And then finally, I want you to understand the why. I want to jump right to that. Is understand the why, the motivations, the why would you want to sacrifice like this? For one thing, because of, as he said in verse number 35, for his sake. In other words, you know why we sacrifice for the Lord? You know why we follow after Jesus, make him number one in everything, putting everything else to the side, denying ourselves for the sake of Jesus and everything? He says, do it for my sake. That means for his glory's sake. Folks, you exist for the glory of God. God created you to glorify himself. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand the very fundamental purpose of your existence and your life within your soul. You exist to bring glory to God for as long as he'll leave you here. He says to do that. But here's the other why. Not only why should we make these sacrifices, be disciples, not only because of for his glory's sake, but also for the gospel's sake. Verse 35, he said, let's lose our lives for his sake and for the gospel's. Do you not care how many don't know Jesus? Listen, God has not called you to reach everyone, but he has called you to reach some. Do you know something? You could look at me, especially maybe Sunday morning. Remember that passage we looked at about the son, about coming home, and we just enjoyed salvation and the wonder of God the Father. Do you know something is that me, preacher person up here, do you know I'm never going to be in your neighborhood? You are, though. You are. So who's going to tell them about Jesus if you're not? You know I'm never going to get a job where you work, right? Not because of you, but I'm never going to get a job where you work. So who's going to be the light? Better be you. Who else is going to do it if you're not? I remember when I'm working in these delis, I worked in 2 different delis inside of grocery stores. Man, that deli roster, those were my people. Those are the ones those were my people that I was gonna give them the gospel, and I was going to try to invite them to church. Every person on that roster was going to get something from me, some kind of gospel witness, some kind of invitation to church, something. I just said, well, that's my people. That's my unsaved group of people. God put me around. As I prayed, and I'll tell you what, I was not the best Christian in the world, but I did know this. That was where God had left me, and I remember. As I would pray, I can bring up person after person that came to church. Lady, her boyfriend came to church, brought their kid that they had. Those 2 never got saved, but Dylan sure did. Later on down the road, what do you know? Another lady came, she brought her husband and her 2 kids. Before long, all 4 of them got saved, got baptized, and joined the church. I'm a teenager at the time. I thought, what in the world? All I knew was this. I remember when God told me, yeah, you want to be an evangelist. Why don't you be an evangelist right there in your deli? Instead of waiting for someone to put you on a stage somewhere. And Lord brought some people to himself through it, and many others heard the gospel because of it. I remember nights where I would just say to the other person who I was closing with, look, this is not going to come out the best because it's kind of abrupt and awkward, and I give them the gospel for about 5 minutes. But you know what? Here's this, hey, who else was going to tell them? Because you're never going to be there. I was the one there. I'm never going to be where you're at. Can we not live for the gospel's sake? For the sake of lost, unsaved people all around us, live for the sake of God's glory, for the sake of the gospel, and by the way, also for reward. One of the things, Matthew 16:27 says, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, then shall he reward every man according to his works. You know what Jesus says? Hey, you sacrifice, God says, I'll pay it back. Every mockery you've endured, every dollar that you have spent, every hour that you have labored, God says, I pay it back. And when Jesus pays it back, he pays it back with interest in heaven. What are we living for? Tell you what, you want to have purpose? You want to have a goal in life? Be a disciple of Jesus Christ. Let's bow our heads. Heads down, eyes closed. How many of you would say, Matt, real simple. God spoke to my heart tonight, and there is, I don't even know how to put it. There's so much there tonight, but you would just say, Matt, you know what, let's say it this way. Matt, I needed what was preached tonight. Just raise your hand, you put it right back down. Up and right back down. Good. There's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of specifics what God could have said to you tonight. And so, Megan, why don't you just play the song of your choice that you have there, and would you, as she plays, take this time to talk with the Lord. Take this time to talk with the Lord. Commit things to him. You might be at a point where you say, Lord, I have no idea how this is going to work out. Maybe it's just simply your job has consumed every last minute of your life. And you say, I don't even know where I'm going to start. But Lord, I don't know where I'm going to start. But you help me see things are changing. I'm going to get more on board with following you. I don't know. I don't know what it might be. You commit to the Lord. Commit things to him. Let God change something about your life that he might give you purpose and goals in this life. Why don't you play just one more time through? Take your time with the Lord right now. can look this way. There was actually an Indian evangelist that reported a story that he heard as he was preaching over in India. There was a man who was basically a man. It was in a kind of a back village. Man had had gotten saved. He and his family had gotten saved, and it was we're talking like probably 1800, sometime like that. And it was, and of course the village was not real happy that he had received Jesus as his Savior. I don't know where he heard the gospel, but according to the story, he had, and his whole family had received the Lord as their Savior. And so the Indians there, they brought him out, brought his family out, and they simply said, "Deny Jesus, or we kill your kids." And he said to them, "I have decided to follow Jesus, and there's no going back." So they killed his kids. And he said, "Deny Jesus or we kill your wife." And he said, "Right now, all that I see before me is the cross. The world is behind me. The cross is all that's before me. There's no going back." They killed his wife. They said, "You deny Jesus or we'll kill you." He said, "Hey, I don't care if anyone else goes with me. I'm following Jesus." They killed him too. That Indian evangelist happened upon that village, and I don't remember all the details of what he said happened, but he said that the testimony of those people was so strong. It said that when he came upon that village, he was so utterly surprised because he walked into a village where everyone was a Christian. He's used to going in and having to win everybody to the Lord. We walked in and everybody had become a Christian because of the testimony of this guy. For him, it cost a lot. It cost a whole lot more than God's asking out of us. But he said, "I'll do it. I'll do it." And you know what happened? Many came to the Lord because he was willing to be a disciple. Thus, the preacher, this Indian evangelist, used those final words of that man to write the text of the song you just heard, "I've decided to follow Jesus." Makes a whole lot of difference when you sing it, realizing that a man gave up his family and his life because he said, "I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to make him number one." Makes our hobbies not quite so important, doesn't it? Makes our, not quite as important, is it? Josh, why don't you come on and lead us in this song, and we'll close with it.